Good day, everyone. We are the Group 6. We were talking about International Electrotechnical Commission.
So, IEC. Yung IEC is International Electrotechnical Commission. Isa siyang organization. And yung organization na to, siya yung nagpe-prepare, nagpa-publish, nagre-revise ng iba't ibang international standards para sa electrical, electronics, and related technologies. So, dito sa report namin is magpo-focus kami sa electrical standards. Next. First is yung IEC 638 IEC for standard voltages. Uh, Defines a set of standard voltages for use in low voltage and high voltage AC and DC electricity supply systems. So, itong standard na to is applicable siya sa mga equipment na may nominal voltage below 120 volts AC or below 750 volts DC. Isa din yung AC systems na may nominal voltage between 100 volts and 1000 volts, inclusive and related equipment. AC three-phase systems having a nominal voltage above 1 kilovolts and not exceeding 35 kilovolts and related equipment. AC three-phase systems having a nominal voltage above 35 kilovolts and not exceeding 230 kilovolts and related equipment. AC three-phase systems having the highest voltage for equipment exceeding 245 kilovolts. Next is yung IEC 651, direct acting indicating analog electrical measuring instruments and their accessories. Ito naman is yung standard para sa electrical measuring instruments. Sabi dito is specifies definitions and general requirements for direct acting indicating analog electrical measuring instruments and their accessories. Yung mga sinasabi dito na electrical measuring instruments is yung mga ammeters, voltmeters, wattmeters, and varmeters. Frequency meters of pointer and vibrating reed types. Phase meters, power factor meters, and syncoscopes. Ohmmeters or impedance meters and conductance meters. Multifunction instruments of the above types. Applicable din siya sa mga certain type ng accessories tulad ng mga shunts, accessories or instruments para sa shunts, series resistors, and impedance elements. Combination of the instruments and accessories provided that the adjustments have been made for the combination. Direct acting indicating electrical measuring instrument whose scale marks do not correspond directly to its electrical input quantity, provided that the relationship between them is known. Instruments and accessories having electronic devices in their measuring and or auxiliary circuits. Next is IEC 671, Part 1. Insulation coordination, definition, principles, and rules. Dito sa standard na to, pinakita dito yung mga peak values expressed in kilovolts na standardized na siya to withstand these voltages. Itong 20, 40, 60, 75, 95, 125, and so on. Ito yung pangalawa is yung the following RMS values expressed in kilovolts are standardized as withstand voltages 10 to 460. The following RMS value expressed in kilovolts are recommended as withstand voltage 510 to 680. So yung unit nila is kilovolts. Next is itong IEC 676 Part 1, power transformers. So general is standard siya for power transformers. Applies to three-phase and single-phase power transformers including auto transformers, with the exception of certain categories of small and special transformers. For those categories of power transformers and reactors, which have their own IEC standards, this part is applicable only to the extent in which it is specifically called up by cross-reference in other standards. So dito is, binanggit dito yung altitude or height above sea level ng mga power transformers. So above sea level, hindi dapat siya mag-exceed ng 1,000 meters or 3,300 feet. Nandito din yung temperature of ambient air and cooling medium. Temperature of ambient air, hindi siya bababa ng 25 degrees Celsius and hindi siya aakyat ng 40 degrees Celsius. For water-cooled transformers, a temperature of cooling water at the inlet should not exceed 25 degrees Celsius. So para naman sa mga wave shape of supply voltage, a supply voltage of which the wave shape is approximately sinusoidal. This requirement is normally not critical in public supply systems, but may have to be considered in installations with considerable converter loading. In such case, there is no conventional rule that the deformation shall neither exceed 5% of total harmonic content nor 1% even harmonic content. Also note the importance of current harmonics for load loss and temperature rise. Symmetry of three-phase supply voltage for three-phase transformers. A set of three-phase supply voltage which are approximately symmetrical. Installation environment, dito naman sa part na to is yung environment with a pollution rate does not require special consideration regarding the external insulation of transformer bushings or of the transformer itself. An environment not exposed to seismic disturbance, which would otherwise require special consideration in the design. Dito sa IEC 676 Part 2, Power Transformers Temperature Rise. So, nabanggit natin kanina yun sa temperature rise doon sa may general standard doon sa unang-unang part ng 676 Part 1. Sabi dito is, karagdagan na pala to. So, it is assumed throughout this part that the service temperatures of different parts of a transformer can each be described as the sum of the external cooling medium temperature, ambient air or cooling water, and the temperature rise of the transformer part. Normal temperature rise limits applies unless other service conditions are specified. Para naman sa mga water-cooled transformers, normal cooling condition for water-cooled transformers is a temperature of cooling water at the inlet should not exceed 25 degrees Celsius at any time or 20 degrees Celsius yearly average. If the operating water temperature is higher than this, then a lower temperature rise should be specified. Para naman sa mga air-cooled transformers, normal ambient temperature limits for power transformers are given dun sa IEC 676 Part 1. Dito naman sa IEC 676 Part 3, Power Transformers, Insulation Levels, Dielectric Test, and External Clearances in Air. It specifies the insulation requirements and the corresponding insulation tests with reference to specific windings and their terminals. The insulation requirements for power transformers are the corresponding insulation tests are given with reference to specific windings and their terminals. Para sa mga oil-immersed transformers, the requirements apply to the internal insulation only. Any additional requirements or tests regarding external insulations which are deemed necessary shall be subject to agreement between sa supplier and sa purchaser, including test types on a suitable model of the configuration. If the purchaser intends to make the connections to the transformer in a way which reduce the immersed transformer, which may reduce the clearances provided by the transformer alone, this should be indicated in the inquiry sa pag-usap nila. When an oil immersed transformer is specified for operation at an altitude higher than 1,000 meters, clearances shall be designed accordingly. It may then be necessary to select bushings designed for higher insulation levels than those specified for the internal insulation of the transformer windings. The standard dielectric requirements are verified by dielectric tests. They shall where applicable and not otherwise agreed upon be performed in the sequence as given below. So ito yung mga test na ginagawa nila, switching impulse test for the line terminal, lightning impulse test for line terminals, lightning impulse test for the neutral terminal, separate source AC withstand voltage test, short duration induced AC withstand voltage test, long duration induced AC voltage test. Next. So, dito naman sa IEC 676 Part 5, Power Transformers, ability to withstand short circuit. So, dito makikita natin sa table is yung uh, mga computed standard nung para sa short circuit ng mga power transformers. Sabi dito is, unlike other standards such as IEEE or AS, which recommends typical values, IEC recommends minimum values. As these are minimum values, it does not mean that as an electrical designer, you can select very high impedances for your transformers. Example is IEC recommends 4% of minimum impedance for 300 kilovolt transformers. It does not mean, however, you could have 6.5%. Pwede siya, depende sa kung paano mo siya di-design. Dito sa IEC is, nag-recommend lang sila ng mga minimum values. So, why do you have to pay for a transformer? We can buy it cheaper, reducing the impedance. The only time you will select a higher impedance for your transformer will be to reduce true fault current to the transformer. Dito sa IEC 676 Part 7, Power Transformers, Loading Guide for Oil Immersed Transformers. Dito is yung normal life expectancy is a conventional reference basis for continuous duty under design ambient temperature and rated operating conditions. The application of a load in excess of nameplate rating and or an ambient temperature higher than design and ambient temperature involves a degree of risk and accelerated aging. Mas mabilis siya masira. It is the purpose of this part, IEC 676 General, to identify such risk and to indicate how, within limitations, transformers may be loaded in excess of the nameplate rating. So, mababanggit yan mamaya, yung nameplate rating. These risks can be reduced by the purchaser clearly specifying the maximum loading conditions and the supplier taking this into account in the transformer design. The consequences of loading a transformer beyond its nameplate, pag sumobra siya sa nameplate rating ng isang transformer. So, the temperature of winding leads, insulation and oil will increase and can reach unacceptable levels. the leakage flux density outside the core increases, causing additional eddy current heating in metallic parts linked by the leakage flux. As the temperature changes, the moisture and gas content in the insulation and in the oil will change. Bushings, tap changers, cable and connections, and current transformers will also be exposed to higher stress which encroach upon their design and application margins. Next. Dito sa IEC 676 Part 10, determination of sound levels ng mga power transformers. The audible sound radiated by transformers is generated by a combination of magnetostrictive deformation of the core and electromagnetic force in the windings, tank walls, and magnetic shields. The amplitude, the amplitude of these vibrations depends on the flux density in the laminations and the magnetic properties of the core steel, and it is therefore independent of the load current. Recent advances in core design, combined in the use of low induction levels, have reduced the amount of sound generated in the core such that the sound caused by electromagnetic forces may become significant. In addition, stray magnetic fields may increase vibrations in structural components. The force and therefore the amplitude of the vibration is proportional to the square of the current, and the radiated sound power is proportional to the square of the vibrational amplitude. Consequently, the radiated sound power is strongly dependent on the load current. Sound level measurements have been developed to quantify pressure vibrations in air that human ear can detect. Ito yung kaya lang ma-detect ng tenga ng isang tao. May mga tunog na kinakailangan gamitan ng mga equipments and instruments. The smallest pressure variations that a healthy human ear can detect is 20 micropascals. This is the reference level, 0 decibels, to which all the other levels are compared. The perceived loudness of a signal is dependent upon the sensitivity of the human ear to its frequency spectrum. Modern measuring instruments process sound signals through electronic networks, the sensitivity of which varies the frequency in a manner similar to the human ear. This has resulted in a number of internationally standardized weightings of which the awaiting network is the most common. Next. IEC 676 Part 11, dry type transformers. Uh, itong itong part na to ng IEC is applicable lang sa mga dry type transformers. Sa altitude, nabanggit ko naman na kanina sa IEC 676 Part 1. Ano naman siya, pang general naman siya, kaya sabi dun is general. Temperature of cooling air and water for water-cooled transformers, specification of the water, temperature, water flow, etc. has to be defined by agreement between manufacturer and the purchaser. So, sa kanila, kailangan nilang pag-usapan yun. If the temperature of the water is different from the specified in 676 Part 1 and IEC 676 Part 2, liquids other than water can be used as a cooling medium. Then all technical data of the liquid has to be defined by agreement between manufacturer and purchaser. Wave shape of supply voltage. Sinusoidal supply voltage with a total harmonic content not exceeding 5% and an even harmonic content not exceeding 1%. The purchaser shall specify the magnitude and frequency of any harmonic voltages present in the supply that exceed these limits. The manufacturer should take into account these harmonics in determination of additional core losses and also regarding the saturation of the core. Load current, harmonic content. At the inquiry stage, the purchaser shall specify the magnitude and frequency of each of the harmonic current components generated by the load. And the manufacturer shall consider the additional losses caused by harmonic currents in calculating the temperature rise of the windings and the effects on the other metallic parts of the transformer. The manufacturer shall calculate the additional loss by using the method of IEC 61378 Part 1 or by using the method like finite element by agreement between manufacturer and purchaser. Dito naman sa symmetry of three-phase supply voltage, nandun pa din siya sa 676 Part 1. So, general standard pa din siya. Installation environment, DC standard defines specific classes for environment. First is yung climate condition, humidity and pollution, for fire behavior and seismic disturbances. Load of vibration. Vibrations of the structure where the transformer is to be installed shall be taken into account when designing the transformer. In special consideration shall be given in the stress transferred to connection terminals. Corrosion protection. Depending on the type of the installation, the purchaser should choose a protection class defined in ISO. So, ibang ibang standard pero ina-apply din siya dito. ISO 12944 or as agreed between sa purchaser na naman tsaka sa manufacturer. Protection from water and liquids. The transformer shall be protected against dripping water or flooding by water and other liquids. Maintenance, the user shall follow the manufacturer guideline for maintenance and especially avoid an accumulation of dust or pollution on the transformer by regular cleaning. So dito sa maintenance, may binibigay naman lagi yung manufacturer na guide for maintenance. Next, Jay. IEC 676 Part 12. Power transformers, loading guide for dry type power transformers. Defines a set of standard voltages for use in low voltage and high voltage AC and DC electricity supply systems. Experience indicates that the normal lifetime of a transformer is some tens of years. So, yung normal lifetime ng mga transformers, sabi dito is tens of years. It cannot be stated more precisely because it may vary between identical units, owing in particular to operating factors which may differ from the transformer to another. With few exceptions, a transformer rarely operates at 100% of rated current throughout its lifetime. Other heating factors such as insufficient cooling, harmonics, overfluxing, and or unusual conditions as described in 676.11 could also affect the life of the transformer. When heat, which is mainly due to the transformer's losses, is transferred to the insulation system, a chemical process begins. This process changes the molecular structure of the materials which form the insulation system. The aging rate increases with the amount of heat transferred to the system. This process is cumulative and irreversible, which means that the materials do not regain their original molecular structure when the heat supply stops and the temperature decreases. The thermal index of the insulation system is stated in a manufacturer's documentation and is also written on the rating plate. It is assumed that failing insulation due to aging is one of the causes of end of lifetime of the transformer. Further, it is assumed that the aging rate varies with temperature according to the Arrhenius equation. See Annex A for additional background information. The two constants of this equation should ideally be determined by means of thermal endurance testing. In cases where data from such testing is missing, this guide provides estimated constants. Next is yung IEC 6146 Part 1, uh, Part 1. Semiconductor converters, general requirements, and line commutated converters. Specifications of basic requirement. Specifies the requirements for the performance of all the semiconductor power converters and semiconductor power switches using controllable and or non-controllable electronic valve devices. The main purpose IEC 601146 series are as follows. Itong part 1 is specification of basic requirements. To establish basic terms and definitions, to specify service conditions which influence the basis of rating, to specify test requirements for electronic power converters and assemblies, standard design, to specify basic performance requirements, to give application-oriented requirements for semiconductor power converters. Next is IEC 6255 Part 1, Measuring Relays and Protection Equipment, Common Requirements. All measuring relays and protection equipment used for protection within the power system environment are covered by this standard. Which in such cases shall take precedence for for special applications, for marine, aerospace, explosive atmospheres, computers, etc. The general requirements within this standard may need to be enhanced by additional special requirements. The requirements are applicable only to relays in new condition. All tests in this standard are type tests, unless otherwise declared. Next is IEC 6269, Part 1, Low Voltage Fuses General Requirements. Applicable to fuses incorporating enclosing current limiting fuse links with rated breaking capacities of not less than 6 kA, intended for protecting power frequency AC circuits of nominal voltages not exceeding 1000 volts or DC circuits of nominal voltages not exceeding 1500 volts. Dito tayo sa IEC 60269 Part 2, Low Voltage Fuses, Supplementary Requirements for Fuses for use by authorized persons. Itong standard, IEC standard na to is para sa mga authorized persons. Is a set of technical standard for low voltage fuses. The standard is in 4 volumes which describe general requirements, fuses for industrial and commercial applications, fuses for residential applications, and fuses to protect semiconductor devices. The IEC standard unifies several national standards, thereby improving the interchangeability of fuses in international trade. All fuses of different technologies tested to meet IEC standards will have similar time current characteristics, which simplifies design and maintenance. Next. IEC 60282 Part 1, High Voltage Fuses, Current Limiting Fuses. Applicable siya sa lahat ng types ng high voltage current limiting fuses designed for use outdoors or indoors on alternating current systems of 50 Hz and 60 Hz and of rated voltage exceeding 1000 volts. Dito sa IEC 60287 Part 11, electric cables, calculation of the current rating equations, percent load factor, and calculations of losses general. So, pinakita dito yung mga ginagamit na formula or calculations para sa AC cables, skin effect factor, loss factor for sheet and screen, loss factor for armor, reinforcement, and steel pipes. Dito naman sa IEC 63364 Part 1, Low Voltage Electrical Installations, Fundamental Principles, Assessment of General Characteristics and Definitions. The rules are intended to provide for the safety of persons, livestock, and property against dangers and damage which may arise in the reasonable use of electrical installations, and to provide for the proper functioning of those installation. So itong IEC standard nito is general siya ulit. Nandito papasok yung protection against electric shock, protection against overcurrent, protection against thermal effects, tsaka protection against power supply interruption. Dito naman sa IEC 60364 Part 4 sa Part 41, Low Voltage Electrical Installations, Protection for Safety, Protection against Electric Shock. So ito na yung electric shock. Deals with protection against electric shock as applied to electrical installations. It is based on IEC 61140, which is basically basic safety standard that applies to the protection of safe person and livestock. So sabi dito is protection against electric shock. This protection can be achieved by one of the following methods: preventing a current from passing through the body of any person or any livestock, limiting the current which can pass through a body to a non-hazardous value, fault protection, protection against indirect contact. This protection can be achieved by one of the following methods: preventing a current resulting from a fault from passing through the body of any person or any livestock, limiting the magnitude of a current resulting from a fault which can pass through a body to a non-hazardous value, limiting the duration of a current resulting from a fault which can pass through a body to a non-hazardous time period. Protective exponential bonding. In each building, incoming metallic parts which are liable to introduce a dangerous potential difference and do not form part of the electrical installation shall be connected to the main earthing terminal by protective bonding conductors. Next is yung IEC 6364 Part 442. Low voltage electrical installations, protection for safety, protection against thermal effects. Dito naman sa IEC standard nito is yung mga thermal effects. The electrical installation shall be so arranged to minimize the risk of damage or ignition of flammable materials due to high temperature or electric arc. It is recommended that special measures be taken to protect against the effects of arc faults in final circuits, in premises with sleeping accommodation, in location with risk of fire due to the nature of process or stored materials. Example, BE2 locations, barns, woodworking shops, stores of combustible materials. In location with combustible constructional materials, example, CA2 locations, wooden buildings in fire propagating structures, example is your CBT locations. CB2, in location with endangering of irreplaceable goods. Next, J. IEC 364 Part 443. Low voltage electrical installations, protection for safety, protection against overcurrent. Protection can be achieved by limiting the overcurrent to safe value of duration. Describes how live conductors are protected by one or more devices for automatic interruption of the supply in the event of overload. Protection of line conductors. Detection of overcurrent shall be provided for all line conductors. It shall cause the disconnection of the conductor in which the overcurrent is detected, but not necessarily the disconnection of other live conductors. Where the cross-sectional area of the neutral conductor is at least equivalent to that of the line conductors, and the current in the neutral is expected not to exceed the value with the light conductors, it is not necessary to provide overcurrent protection for neutral conductor or a disconnecting device for that conductor. Overload detection shall be provided for the neutral conductors in a multi-phase circuit where the harmonic content of the line currents is such that the current in the neutral conductor is expected to exceed the current carrying capacitor of the conductor. Where the neutral conductor is distributed, it is necessary to provide overcurrent detection for the neutral conductor of every circuit. The overcurrent detection shall cause the disconnection of all the live conductors of the corresponding circuit, including the neutral conductor. This measure is not necessary if the particular neutral conductor is effectively protected against overcurrent by a protective device placed on the supply side. For example, at the origin of the installation, or if the particular circuit is protected by a residual current operated protective device with a rated residual current not exceeding 0 to 20 times uh, current not exceeding 0. 20 times the current carrying capacity of the corresponding neutral conductor. This device shall disconnected all the live conductors of the corresponding circuit, including the neutral conductor. The device shall have sufficient breaking capacity for all poles. IEC 63644, Part 444. Low voltage electrical installations, protection for safety, protection against voltage disturbances, and electromagnetic disturbances. Provided rules for the protection against the effects of conducted and radiated disturbances on electrical installations. CRL, or calculated risk level, is used to determine if protection against transient overvoltage at atmospheric origin is required. The CRL is find the following formula. CRL is equals to ayan. The risk assessment length LP. LPAL is the length of low voltage overhead line. LPCL, length naman to ng low voltage underground cable. LPAH, the length of the high voltage overhead line. LPCH is the length of high voltage underground cable. So the total length is yung pag-add-in mo lang silang apat. Sabi dito is the total length is limited to 1 kilometer or by the distance from the first overvoltage protective device installed in the power network to the entrance of the installation, whichever is the smaller. If the distribution network's lengths are totally or partially known, when LPAL shall be taken equal to remaining distance to reach the total length of 1 kilometer. IEC 6364, Part 551. Low voltage electrical installations, selection and erection of electrical equipment, common rules. It provides common rules for compliance with measuring of protection, for safety requirements, for proper functioning, for intended use of the installation, and requirements appropriate to the external influence foreseen. Para sa voltage, every item of equipment shall comply with such standards as are appropriate, and in addition with any applicable standards of the ISO. So ibang standard na naman yung pero applicable naman siya dito. Equipment shall be suitable for the nominal voltage of the installation if in IT installations The neutral conductor is distributed equipment connected between phase and neutral shall be insulated for the voltage between phases. So para sa current naman, equipment shall be selected for the design current which it has to carry in normal service. Equipment shall also be capable of carrying the current likely to flow in abnormal conditions for such periods of time as are determined by the characteristics of the protective devices. So para sa frequency, if frequency has an influence on the characteristics of equipment, the rated frequency of the equipment shall correspond to the frequency of the current in the circuit concerned. So power, para sa power naman is equipment selected for its power characteristics shall be suitable for the normal operational conditions, taking account for the load factor. Next is yung IEC 68364 Part 552, Low Voltage Electrical Installations, Selection and Erection of Electrical Equipment. So, wiring systems naman. Deals with the selection of and erection of wiring systems. Types of wiring systems. The method of installation of a wiring system is relation to the type of conductor or cable used shall be in accordance with Table 52.1. Provided the external influences are covered by the requirements of the relevant product standards. The method of installation of a wiring system in relation to the situation concerned shall be in accordance with this standard. Example of wiring systems together with reference to the appropriate table of current carrying capacity are in this standard. Busbar trunking systems. Busbar trunking system shall comply with IEC 60439 Part 2 and shall be installed in accordance with the manufacturer instructions. The installation shall be accordance with the requirements of Clause 522, I mean. AC circuits conductors of AC circuits installed in ferromagnetic enclosures shall be arranged so that all conductors of each circuit are contained in the same enclosure. Dito naman sa IEC 60365 Part 553. Low voltage electrical installation, selection and erection of electrical equipment, isolation, switching and control. Deals with general requirement for isolation, switching and control with the requirements for selection and erection of the devices provided to fulfill such functions. For compliance with IEC 60364 Part 441 and IEC 60364 Part 441, Clause 412, electrical equipment shall be selected as follows. Lahat ng sabi dito is lahat ng gagamitin na electrical equipment kailangan may logo na ganito. Yung nakikita natin sa baba, yung may box kasi sila yung pasok sa standard. Electrical equipment marked with the symbol. Ito nga. Itong symbol na to. Electrical equipment declared in the relevant product standard or by the manufacturer as equivalent to Class 2. Electrical equipment with basic insulation only. Supplementary insulation shall be provided by an enclosure of at least IP XXB or RP2X, or by a process of installation providing the equivalent level of safety. Electrical equipment having uninsulated live parts shall have reinforced insulation provided by an enclosure of at least IPXXB or IP2X, or by a process of installation providing the equivalent level of safety. Next, IEC 63645 Part 554, earthing arrangements and protective conductors, addresses the earthing arrangements and protective conductors including protective bonding conductors in order to satisfy the safety of the electrical installation. General requirement: the earthing arrangement may be used jointly or separately for protective and functional purposes according to the requirements of the electrical installation. The requirements for protective purposes shall always take precedence. Where provided, earth electrodes within an installation shall be connected to the main earthing terminal using an earthing conductor. Note: an installation does not need to have its own earth electrode. Where the supply to an installation is at high voltage, requirements concerning the earthing arrangement of the high voltage supply and of the low voltage installations shall also comply with clause 442 of IEC 60364 part 442 44 I mean. The requirements for earthing arrangements are intended to provide a connection to earth which is reliable and suitable for the protective requirement of the installation, can carry earth fault currents and protective conductor currents to earth without danger from thermomechanical, and electromechanical stresses from the electrical shock arising from these currents. If relevant, is also suitable for functional requirements, is suitable for foreseeable external influences. Example nito is yung mechanical stresses and corrosion. Next is yung IEC 60364 part 555, low voltage electrical installation, other equipment. Itong IC standard na to is yung kinocover niya yung requirements for the selection and erection of generating sets and for the selection and erection of luminaries and lighting installations intended to be part of the fixed installation. Next.
Good day. Ako po yung next reporter. Ito po yung magiging report ko is IEC 60336 Part 5 to 56, Low Voltage Electrical Installations, Selections and Erections of Electrical Equipment, Safety Services. Covers general requirements for safety services, selection and erection of electrical supply, systems for safety and safety services and electrical safety sources. Standby electrical supply systems are outside the scope of this part. Uh, Safety service, electrical system for electrical provided to protect or warn persons in the event of hazard or essential to their evacuation for a location. Uh, Safety services may be required to operate at all relative times, including during main and local supply failure and through fire condition. To meet these requirements, specific sources, equipment, circuits, and wiring are necessarily. For the health and safe for the health and safety of the person and livestock, and to avoid damage to the environment and to other equipment. Electrical supply for safety service supply system intended to maintain the operation of essential parts of an electrical installation and equipment. Ang mga serbisyo at mapagkukunang pangkalikasan ay dapat idisenyo at matatagpuan upang bawasan ang mga panganib na maaaring magdulot ng sunog, pagbaha, at paninira at iba pang masamang kondisyon at makakaapekto sa pagkakaroon ng supply ng kuryente. Next. IEC 60-36-4 Part 6, Low Voltage Electrical Installation, Part 6, Verification. It provides requirements for initial verification by inspection and testing of an electrical installation to determine as far as reasonably practicable whether the requirements of the other parts of IEC 60-36-4 have been met and requirements for the reporting of the result of the initial verification. Nagbibigay ng mga tagubilin para sa paunang inspeksyon at pagsubok sa isang electrical installation upang makita kung sa abot ng mga kaya ng isang tao ang may iba pang kailangan ng IEC 60364 ay natugunan. At dagdag ko rin dito is it provides requirements for periodic verification of an electrical installation to determine as far as reasonably practicable whether the installation and its constituent equipment are in satisfactory condition for use and requirements for the reporting of the results of the periodic verification. Next. IEC 603647 Part 7 to 7001. Low voltage electrical installations. Requirements for special installation or locations. Uh, Location containing a bath or shower. Bathrooms and showers rooms are areas of high risk because of the very low resistance of the human body when met or immersed in water. Precaution to be taken are therefore correspondingly rigorous and the regulation are more severe than those for most other location. Ah, 'Di ba dito guys yung iba sa atin sa mga CR natin is meron saksakan or power outlet. Halimbawa na lang is yung sa blower ng buhok. Yung iba ay sa loob ng CR na nagpapatuyo ng buhok para hindi na hassle sa paglabas ng CR. Kagaya ng mga ano na yun, mga babae. Kaya talaga mahalaga na low voltage lang talaga ang dapat sa pag-install sa location ng shower or bathroom dahil high risk kasi alam naman natin na mababa yung resistance ng electricity sa water. Kaya kahit kapag nahawakan ng ito ng tao is makuryente na agad siya. Kaya sobrang halaga nito. Sa mga tuwid, ang mga pag-iingat ay dapat gawin sa isang mahigpit na paraan at mga batas ay mas mahigpit kaysa karamihan ng iba pang mga lugar. Makikita natin dito guys yung dalawang picture or figure. Dito naman sa picture is ang kahulugan ng mga zone na may bilang 0, 1, and 2 kung saan ay paglalagay o paglalagay ng anumang dekuryente aparato ay mahigpit na limitado ay pinagbabawal at kung saan pinapahintulutan ang electrical at mechanical na protection ay inireseta. Yan, makita niyo dyan yung may mga color is and yung walang color is pwede lagyan ng power outlet. Next naman is IEC 60364 Part 7 to 702. Low voltage electrical installations, requirements for special installations or location, swimming pools and fountains. The particular requirements of this part of 6036 apply to electrical installation of basins of swimming pool and paddling pools and their surrounding zones, areas in natural waters, lakes and gravel pits and coastal and similar areas, specially intended to occupied by person for swimming, paddling and similar purposes and their surrounding zones, such areas in natural waters, lakes, in gravel pits and coastal and similar areas are considered as swimming pools. Basins of fountains and their surrounding zones. In these areas, in normal use, the effect of the electric shock is increased by a reduction in body resistance and contact of the body with earth potential. For swimming pools, for medical use, special requirements may apply. This standard does not cover the mobile equipment, sample of full cleaning equipment. Katulad din nito nung nauna tungkol sa pagkakaroon ng outlet sa loob ng shower room. Kailangan talaga na magkaroon ng low voltage sa swimming pool or fountain dahil meron itong tubig na siyang good conductor of electricity. Kaya kapag ito'y nahawakan tao ay is makukuryente ito. Next. Ayan. IEC 6036-4 Part 7 to 7073. Low voltage electrical installation requirements for special installation or locations. So yung mga rooms and cabins containing sauna heaters. The particular requirements of this part of IEC 60364 apply to sauna cabins erected on site. Example, in a location or in a room. The room where the sauna heater is or the sauna heating appliances are installed. In this case, the whole room is considered as the sauna. They do not apply to the prefabricated sauna cabins complying with relevant equipment standards. Ang mga pangunahing pagbabago sa technical na may sa nakaraang desisyon ay may kinalaman sa pag-update ng mga kinakailangan upang isaalang-alang sa ang mga evolusyon sa kagamitan sa sauna na may particular na din sa mga prefabricated na cabin. Bilang karagdagan, bilang tugon sa isang pangangailangan mula sa mga installer, nagkaroon ng ilang elaborasyon sa pagbabago ng temperatura sa mga sauna pati sa protection laban sa electric shock. Parehas lang ito nung sa may shower na mayroong zone na may mga zone sa pagkakaroon ng tawag nito ng electrical installation. Next, IEC 60364 Part 7 to 704. Low voltage electrical installation requirements for special installation or location. Ito yung construction and demolition site installation. The special requirements of this part apply to temporary installation for construction and demolition sites during the period of the construction of or demolition work, including, for example, the following: construction work of new buildings, repair, alteration, extension, demolition of existing buildings or part of existing buildings, engineering works, earthworks, work of similar nature. The requirements apply to fixed or movable installation. Ah, ang mga construction site ay isa sa mga mas mapaghamong kapaligiran sa ligtas na paggamit ng kuryente dahil ang trabaho ay sinisagawa sa lahat ng panahon. Ang mga basa at basang kondisyon at mga lugar na patuloy na nagbabago habang umuusad ang trabaho ay maaaring magpapataas ng panganib sa electric shock. Kaya't mahalaga na mababa ang voltahe ng ganitong lokasyon o lugar. Next. IEC 6036 for 7 Part 7 705. Ito naman yung agricultural and horticultural premises. The requirements of this part of IEC 6036 apply to fixed electrical installation inside and outdoors of electrical and horticultural premises. Some of the requirements are also applicable to other location and that are in common building belonging to the agricultural and horticultural premises, rooms, location, and areas for household uh, household application and similar are not covered by this standard. Meron ako example dito. Uh, uh, may pagkakatulad sa dito sa ito. Wait lang. Ito na po siya.
Grow lights are designed to promote plant growth. It can either mimic natural sunlight or be tailored to match specific needs of plant. A tailor-made emission spectrum offers growers greater control over plant development. The increasing demand for this type of light source makes it essential to have a product design that can operate under elevated environmental conditions while maximizing efficiency. TÜV aims in the testing and verification of lighting products so that growers can define the appropriate measures to impact growth and nutritional value of their plants. We work closely with your business as a sole source for testing and certification compliance of all lighting types to suit different global markets and country-specific industry standards. We also provide customer-specific tests beyond national requirements, as well as training and workshop services. Growers and manufacturers benefit from TÜV by minimizing risk and achieving global support by leveraging our strong reputation for independence and impartiality. To know more about TÜV Grow Lights, visit us at www.
Ayun na yung nakita nyong video. May pagkakatulad dito sa sa agricultural and horticultural premises. Ang IEC 6036-47705 ay isang pamantayan na tumatalakay lalo na sa mga kinakailangan sa kaligtasan at pagganap ng mga dekuryenteng kagabitan at pag-install para sa mga panloob na aplikasyon ng agrikultura. Ang parehong panloob at panlabas ng electrical installation na permanenteng nakalagay ay dapat sumunod sa mga kinakailangan. Ang pangkalahatang kaligtasan ng electrical at mechanical ng pag-install ay binibigyang diin ng pamantayan. IEC 6036-47705 ay nagtataguyo ng isang minimum na proteksyon sa pagpasok at nakatuon sa pag-protect laban sa pagpasok ng tubig. The conditions for plant light are very different because electrical devices are exposed to moisture, dust, vapor, acids, and seals, which are chemically aggressive to electrical equipment. Next. IEC 6036-47706. Low voltage electrical installation. Dito may mga location na conducting location with restrictive movement. Applies to fixed equipment in conducting location where movement of person is restricted by the location and to supplies for portable equipment for use in such locations. A conducting location with restricted movement is comprised mainly of metallic or other conductive surroundings parts within which it is likely that a person will come in contact through a substantial portion of his body with the metallic or other conductive surrounding parts and where the possibility of interacting this contact is limited. Ang isang lokasyon na may pinagigpitang paggalaw ay binubuo pangunahin ng mga metalo o iba pang conductive na nakapaligid na mga bahagi kung saan malamang na ang isang tao ay makakadikit sa pamagitan ng malaking bahagi ng kanyang katawan sa metal o iba pang conductive na nakapaligid na mga bahagi at kung saan ang posibilidad na makakagambala. Limitado ang mga contact na ito kaya dapat din na mababa ang voltahe ang meron sa lugar na ito. Next. IEC 6036-47708. Dito naman is yung mga caravan parks, camping parks, and similar location. The particular requirements contained in this part of IEC apply only to circuits intended to supply leisure accommodation vehicles, tents, or residential park homes in caravan parks, camping parks, and similar location. Remember that camping on site using a 230 volts electricity supply with caravans motorhomes, and tents requires even more care in the home because your unit is mobile. There is a greater likelihood of things going wrong with electrical installation than with the fixed installation within your house. It is therefore important to make sure your cables and equipment are maintained in a good condition by simple checks every time you see it, by regular inspection by a qualified technician, and also by using it a sensible way. Next, IEC 6036-47-709. Dito naman yung marinas and similar location na may malbababang dapat na may bababang voltage electrical solution. The particular requirements specified in this part apply only to circuits intended to supply pleasure craft or house boats in marinas and similar location. The particular requirements do not apply to the supply of house boats or if they are directly supplied from the public network. The particular requirements do not apply to the internal electrical installations of pleasure craft or houseboats. Uh, some external influence particularly likely to affect electrical installation of marinas are the presence of water, the movement of structure, the presence of solid foreign bodies, and in many cases, and then impact. This is the typical wiring in marina. Underground cables, sheeted or non-sheeted overhead cables, mineral insulated cable with a thermoplastic covering, thermoplastic or elastomeric insulation, armored cable with extruded non-hygroscopic fibers, cables that are at least equivalent to the above. Cables suspended in free air or incorporating a support wire, my mineral insulated cables. And dito naman sa picture na ito is ang cables are selected and installed so that the mechanical damage due to the movement of floating structures caused by waves or tide, for example, is prevented. Next, uh, IEC 6036-47-710. Ito naman yung medical locations. Applies to electrical installation in medical location. So, as to provide safety of patients and medical staff, this requirement refers to hospital and clinics or equivalent institutions, including equivalent transport, portable and mobile location, which subject to assessment included sanatoriums and health clinics, dedicated location in homes for senior citizens and aged care homes where patients receive medical care, medical centers, outpatients, and clinic and departments, casualty wards, other patient outpatients into institution like industrial, sports, and others. Medical and dental practices, dedicated medical rooms in workplace, other locations where medical electrical installation is used, like veterinary clinics, room rooms in existing installation where change of utilization for medical application is used. The natural protection of the human body is considerable reduced when certain clinical procedures are being performed on it. For example, patients undergoing treatment may have their skin resistance broken or their defensive capacity either reduced by medication or nullified while nagano ng anesthesis. This condition increase the possible consequence of a shock under false conditions. Additional to the consideration of risk from electric shock, some kinds of electrical equipment like life support equipment, surgical equipment, perform such vital function that loss of supply would pose an unacceptable risk to patients. Medical location where such equipment is used will require secure supplies. This has implication not only for the provision of safety, power supplies, but can also render some conventional protective measure unsuitable. Example, when protecting circuits, supplying critical medical equipment, restrictions are stipulated on the use of RCDs. Next, IEC 6036-47711. Ah, Dito naman yung may exhibition shows and stands na may mababang voltahe na liquor installation. It gives requirements applying to the temporary electrical installation in exhibition shows and stands, including mobile and portable displays and equipment to protect users. Uh, the particular risks associated with exhibitions, shows and stands are those of electric shock and fire due to temporary nature of the installation, the lack of permanent structures, severe mechanical stresses, and access to the general public, where a generator is used to supply the temporary installation using TN or TT system. It must be ensured that the installation is earthed, preferable by separate earth electrodes for TM systems. All exposure conductive parts should be bounded back to the generator. The neutral conductor and or star point of the generator should be contacted to the exposed conductive parts of the generator and reference earthen. Katulad na itong pinakita sa picture na to. Next, IEC 6036-4, Part 7, 712. Ito naman yung solar photovoltaic or PV power supply systems. Applies to the electrical installation of PV systems intended to supply all or part of an installation. The equipment of a PV installation, like any other item of equipment, is dealt with only so far as its selection and application in the installation is concerned. The equipment of PV installation, like any other item of equipment, is dealt with only so far as its selection and application in the installation is concerned. A PV installation starts from a PV module or a set of PV modules connected in series with the cables provided by the PV module manufacturer use up to the user installation or the utility supply points. PV applies to installation not connected to system for distribution of electricity to the public. PV applies to installation in parallel with a system for distribution of electricity to the public. Yung PV applied to installation as an alternative to the system for distribution of electricity to the public. Appropriate combination of the na yung nasa taas yung nauna kong sinabi. Next. IEC 60364 Part 7 to 713. Furniture. The particular requirements of this part apply to the wiring of furniture, which is connected to the electrical installation. Example are beds, cupboards, desks, and shop display cases in which electrical equipment such as luminaires installation, couplers, according to IEC 61535, socket outlets, switching devices, and wiring system are installed. The requirement of this part apply to all kinds of furniture, regardless of the connection to the electrical installation of the building, as long as the furniture together with its electrical installation is not the subject of the another IEC publication. IEC 636 for 7.715. Ito na may extra low voltage lighting installation. The particular requirements apply to extra low voltage lighting installations supplied from source with a maximum rated voltage of 50 voltage AC or 120 voltage DC. For the definition of an extra low voltage lighting system, reference should be made to IEC 6059-8 Part 223. This second edition canceled and replaced the first edition published in 1999 and constitutes uh, a technical revision. The major technical changes with respect to the previous edition are the class numbering is aligned with the present structure of IEC 60364. Reference to LED module sender particular installation requirements have been introduced, and requirements for cross-sectional areas of conduction are modified. The safety by extra low voltage or SELV is used in situations where the operations of electrical equipment presents as serious hazard, like swimming pools, amusement parks, etc. This measure depends on supplying power at extra low voltage from the secondary windings of isolating transformer, especially designed according to national or the international standard. The impulse withstand the level of insulation between the primary and secondary windings is very high, and an earthen metal screen is sometimes incorporated between the windings. Next. Wait lang. Yung darami pa. Basic protection is generally necessary except when the equipment is in the zone of equipotential bonding and the nominal voltage does uh, not exceed 25 voltage RMS, and equipment is used in normally dry location only. And the large area contact with the human body is not expected. Next. IEC 60364 7, Part 7, 717. Ito naman yung mobile or transportable unit na low voltage electrical installation. The particular requirements as specified in this part of IEC 60364 are applicable to mobile or transportable units. For the purpose of this part, the term unit refers to the vehicle and or mobile or transportable structure in which all of or part of an electrical installation is contained. Units are either of the mobile type or of the transportable type. Example are the units of for television and broadcasting, medical services, advertising, firefighting, using special information technology, units for disaster relief, uh, catering units. A mobile or transportable unit is classes class as a special installation and so in addition to the general requirements of BS 7671 such as installing to need to comply with the relevant requirements. Refers examples such units include vehicles for the entertainment industry, medical and or health screening services, and welfare units. Typically, the connection for the unit once delivered to site is normally not under the control of the person performing the initial verification. So the person responsible for the connection of the unit will need to check the relevant documentation provided and confirm the the relevant requirements satisfied before the unit is energized. Next. IEC 6036 for 7, Part 7, 718. Low voltage electrical installations. Ito naman communal facilities and workplace. It provides additional requirements for electrical installation applicable to communal facilities and workplace. Typical examples of communal facilities and workplace are listed. Ito naman yung mga assemble halls, assembly rooms, exhibition halls, theaters, cinemas, sports arenas, sales areas, restaurants, hotel, guest houses, residential care homes, schools, enclosed car parks, meeting places, swimming halls, airports, railway station, high-rise buildings, workshop, factories, and industrial plants. Next, IEC 6036 for 77, Part 7, 721, low voltage electrical installation sa electrical installation ng caravans and motor caravans. The particular requirements of this part apply to electrical installations in caravans and motor caravans. They apply to those electrical circuits and equipment intended for the use of caravan for exhibition purposes. The list of specific, spe- specifically associated with installations in caravan, camping parks, caravan and motor caravan arise from open circuit faults for the conductor of PME, TNCS supplies rising the potential to through earth of all metal work for dangerous levels. Incorrect polarity at the pitch supply points. Uh, Particular requirements due to reduce the above risk included provision of the connection of exposed extra news conductive parts of the caravan or motor caravan to a PME, TNCCS terminal where the supply to the site is PME, TNCS. The earthing arrangement at the pitch supply point shall form part of the TT system. Additional protection by 30 MA RCDs in both the vehicle and the pitch point. They do not apply to those electrical circuits and equipment for automobile purposes. They do not apply to the electrical installation of mobile homes, residential park homes, and transportable units. Protective earth and neutral is a single conductor that the uh, combined function of providing neutral and protective earth conductor in TNCS earthing arrangement. TNC describe an arrangement where a combined protective earth neutral is or pen is connected to the earth of the sources. Next. IEC 6036 for 7, Part 7, 722. Low voltage electrical insulation supplies for electric vehicles. The particular requirements of this document apply to circuits intended to uh, uh, supply energy to the electrical vehicles and circuits intended for feeding uh, electricity from vehicles. Circuits covered this document are terminated at the connecting point. Uh, Controlling and protecting the supply to hub chargers requires low voltage assemblies. Outdoor low voltage assemblies offers much more advantage uh, than indoor assemblies in tiny structures or fiberglass housing because the majority of charging hubs will be suited in open areas. Since less room is needed, the assembly can frequently be placed nearly to the chargers. Additionally, since the assembly is provided as a single unit, installation time is decreased and both the initial and ongoing expenditures are significantly lower. The requirements for electric car charging are higher than those for typical low voltage assemblies. This is due to the fact that all circuits must the fully and continuously loaded at the same time. Uh, and in some cases, the assembly may be operated at full load for extended periods of time. Charging an electric vehicle requires connection to a powerful electricity supply. Even though the vehicle is suited in an outdoor uh, environment during rainy period and used by the person at the risk of electricity. Next, IEC 6036 for Part 7, 729, operating or maintenance gangways. The requirements of this part apply to basic protection and other aspects in restricted uh, access areas with switch gear and control gear assemblies including requirements for operating the maintenance gangways. Ito na yan. Dito sa figure 1, where the gangways has the unprotected live parts and arranged on one side only. The minimum distance shall be uh, the wind of gangway between the wall and live parts 900 mm. Free passage in front of controls 700 mm. Uh, Height of live parts above the floor 2,500 mm. The 2,500 mm height above the floor given as the minimum distance to live parts apply only in the gangway. where it's possible for a person to stand or walk. Figure 2 is where the gangway has live parts on both sides. The minimum distance shall be wind of gangway between live parts is 1,300 mm. Minimum distance between the front of the handle and the live bars on the opposite side of the gangway, 1,100 mm. Minimum free passage in front of control, 900 mm. Height of live bars above the floor, 2,500 mm. The 2,500 mm height above the floor, given the minimum distance to live apart, applies only the gangway, where it is possible for the person to stand and walk. The third figure, where the protective measure is provided by barriers or enclosures, the following minimum distance apply: wind of gangway which with barriers or enclosures between switch handle 600 mm and the circuit breakers in position, isolation, or switch handles and the wall. Wind of the gangway between barriers of or enclosures and other barriers or 500 mm enclosures or barriers or enclosures the wall. Height of paneling above the floor 2,000 mm. The height of live parts above the 2,000 the floor 2,500 mm. Where the additional workplace is needed, example for special switchgear and control assemblies, larger dimension may required. Next. IEC low volt 6036 for part 7, 740. Low voltage electrical installation, temporary electrical installation for structures, amusement device, and booths at fairgrounds, amusement parks, and circus. This part of this part specify the minimum electrical installation requirements to facilitate the safe design, installation, and operate of temporary installed mobile or transportable electrical machine and structures which incorporate electrical equipment. Uh, The machine and structures are intended to be installed repeatedly without loss of safety temporary at fairground, amusement parks, circus, or similar places. The part of this, the object of this part define the electrical installation requirements for such structures and machines, both being either integral parts of constituting the total amusement device. Uh, Next, IAC 6036 for 7723. Heating cables and embedded heating system. This include heating system for walls, ceiling floors, roofs, drain pipes, gutters, pipes, stairs, roadways, non-hardened and compact areas. Example, football fields, lawns. For wall heating system, this standard contains additional requirements like example, metal sheet enclosure grid to protect against the effect of overheating caused by short circuit between live conductor due to penetration of embedded heating unit. From heating unit delivered for the manufacturer without exposed conductive parts, this standard requires a metallic mesh covering. Next, IEC 6036 for Part 8, number 1. Low voltage in the installation energy efficiency. Give requirements and recommendation for the design of an electrical installation with a energy efficiency approach. This emphasize the importance of energy efficiency in the design of electrical installation in the same way as the safety implementation rules. Uh, in manufacturing industry, energy efficiency can be easily defined by the quantity of energy, uh, kilowatt hour energy necessary to manufacture one product for an electrical installation in a building particularly. Energy efficiency is defined as the system approach with objective to optimize the use of uh, includes includes dito sa picture na to minimize energy losses in the electrical installation, use energy at the right time when needed at the lower cost, maintaining the building performance. Dapat nating na tama use na sukatin ng madami na electrical na enerhiya na ginagamit at subaybayan at kontrolin ng enerhiya kung tayo ay gagawa ng mga pagbabago. Ang pamamahala ng enerhiya ay nangangailangan ng tama ng pagsukat ng enerhiya upang paganahin ang pagsukat at pamamahala ng iba't ibang mga kargang electrical na sa isang pag-install. Ang sistema ng pagmamahagi ng kuryente ay dapat na idisenyo sa isang tiyak na paraan. Higit pa rito, ang mga pagkalugi ng kagamitan ay dapat panatilihin na sa pinakamaliit upang pagkaroon ng installation na kasing tipid na sa enerhiyang hanggat maaari. Next. IEC 6044, Basic and Safety Principle for Man-Machine Interface, Marking and Identification of equipment terminals, conductors, termination and conductors. Applies the identification and marking of terminals of electrical equipment such as resistors, fuses, relays, con- contactors, uh, transformers, rotating machine, and wherever applicable to combination of such equipment. Example, assemblies, and also applies to the identification of termination of certain uh, conductors. It provides general rules for the use of certain colors or uh, or alphanumerical notation to the identify conductors with the aim of avoiding ambiguity and ambiguity and ensure safety operation. These conductor colors or alphanumeric notation are intended to apply in cable or course electrical equipment and installation. Last slide. IEC 6047 effect of current on human beings, livestock, general aspect. This part provides basic guidance on the effect of shock current on human beings and livestock for the given current path through the human body. The danger to person depends mainly on the magnitude and duration of the current flow. Uh, However, the time current zones specified in the following classes are in many cases not directly applicable in practice for designing measure of protection against electrical shock. The necessary irritation is the admissible limit of touch voltage. Example, the product of the current through the body called touch current and the body impedance. As the function of the time, the relationship between current and voltage is not linear because the impedance of the human body varies with the touch voltage, and the data on this relationship is therefore required. The different parts of the human body, such as the skin, blood, muscle, other tissues, and joints, present to the electric current, a certain impedance composed of resistive and capacitive uh, components. Last, IEC 6047 Part 2. Effect of current on human beings and livestock, special aspects. The second part of the standard IEC 6047 describe the effect of on the human body when sinusoidal alternating current in the frequency range above 100 Hz passes through. The effect of the current passing through the human body for example, for alternating sinusoidal current with DC components, with phase control, and with multi-cycle control are given but are only deemed applicable for alternating current frequency from 15 AC to 100 AC. Ang isang tao ay maaaring makadama ng dekuryenteng kasalukuyan kasing baba ng 1 mA RMS para sa 60 AC at kasing baba ng 5 mA para sa DC. Sa humigit kumulang 10 mA, ang DC current na dumadaan sa braso ng isang 68 kilogram or 150 pounds na tao ay maaaring magdulot ng malakas na contraction ng kalamnan. Ang biktima ay hindi kusa makokontrol ang kalamnan at hindi makapaglabas ng isang nakuryenteng bagay. This standard furthermore describe the effect of current passing through the human body in the form of single unidirectional rectangular impulse, sinusoidal impulses, and impulses resulting the capacitor discharge. Yun na lang po. Thank you.
Next is IEC 60479 Part 3, Effect of Current of Human Being and Livestock. Effect of current passing through the body of livestock. Provide basic guidance on the effect of electric currents on livestock for use in the establishment of electrical safety requirements. Indicates the values for the electrical impedance of the body of livestock as a function of the touch voltage, the degree of moisture of the hide of skin, and the current path. Values are only available for cattle. Describe the effect of sinusoidal alternating current within the frequency range from 15 Hz to 100 Hz pass through the body of livestock. Has the status of a basic safety publication in accordance with guidance 104. This is technical report indicates value for electrical impedance of the body of livestock as a function of touch voltage, the degree of moisture of the skin, and the current path. At this time, values are only available for cattle, so the effect of sinusoidal alternating current within frequency range from 15 Hz to 100 Hz, 100 Hz passing through the body of livestock. So take note, unless otherwise uh, specified, the current values defined in the technical report are RMS values. So next is IEC 60529, degrees of protection provided by enclosure, IP code, developed for rate and grade the resistance of enclosure for electric and electronic device against the instructions of dust and liquids. The degrees of protection of protections offered by the enclosure of electrical equipment with a rated voltage of a maximum of 72.5 kV. So for degrees of protection provided by enclosure of electrical equipment as required to protect of persons against access to hazards part inside enclosure and to protect of the equipment inside the enclosure against increase of solid objects. So dito is may dalawang kinumpos sila na sa I, sa IPO code na two numerals. First numeral refers to the protections against the solid object. It's rated on a scale from 0 no protections to 6 no increase of dust. Second numeral rates the enclosure protections against liquid and use a scale from no protections to 9 higher pressure hot water from different angles. So next nga ako, Jay. So next is IEC. Di dyan next. Yan. IEC 60644. Specification for high voltage fuse link for motor circuit applications. Applies primarily to fuse link use with motor started direct online on alternating current system of 50 Hz and 60 Hz. Standard time currents characteristic to formulate additional fuse withstand requirements regarding testing and to give guidance for selection of fuse link to be used with motor. So, when motor are used with assisted with this specification can also be applied, but particular attention should be paid to the selection of the rated current of the fuse link, and the manufacturer of the fuse link should be preferably be consulted. And the purpose of this standard is to standardize time current characteristic to formulate fuse withstand requirements regarding testing, to give guidance regarding the selection of fuse link intended to be used with motor. So next is IEC 60664, installation coordination for equipments with low voltage system all parts. So this installation coordination for equipments having a rated voltage up to AC 1000 volts or DC is 15 volts connected to low voltage supply system. This document applies to frequencies to up to 30 kHz. It's applied to requirements for use up to 2000 m above sea level and provide guidance for use at higher altitudes. It's provide requirements for technical committees for determine clearances, pre-page distance, and criteria for solid installations. It, it includes method of electrical testing with respect to installation coordination, the minimum clearances specified in these documents do not apply there gases are present. Special requirements for such situations can be specified at the descriptions of the relevant technical committees. So next is Palex ako, Jay. So next is IEC 607.5, dimensions of low voltage switchgear and control gear, standardized mounting on rail for mechanical support of electrical devices and switchgear and control gear installations. One of the responsibilities of technical committee is wherever applicable to make use of horizontal standard in the preparations of each standard will not apply unless specifically referred to include in the relevant publications. So this is the electrical function of the veil for protections. Earthing is covered by the relevant product standard. So next is IEC 60724, short circuit temperature limits of electric cable with rated voltage of 1 kV UM1 equals 1.2 kV and 3 kV and equals 3.6 kV. The design of accessories, the influence of installation's conditions on the temperature limits are taken into considerations. So the international standard gives guidance on the short circuit maximum temperature units of electric cable having rated voltage of 1 kV yun nga, yung 1 kV tapos yung equals 1.2 kV and 3 kV equals 3.6 kV with regards to the following. So, insulation materials, overheat and bending materials, conductor and metallic sheet materials, and method of connections. So, next is Panex J. J. Panex ako. Yan. Next is IEC 604755, general requirements for residual currents operated protective devices. Provide general minimum requirements, recommendations, and information for the drafting of standards on residual current operated protective devices. Hereinafter referred into as residual currents device (RCDs). It applies to any device provide residual current protection intended primarily for protections against electric shock hazard. So dito is the primary intended to be used as a reference for drafting product safety standard for devices and identified as RCD or residual current devices, either for general use or incorporated embedded in equipments. So next is IEC 60787, applications guide for selection of high voltage currents limiting fuse link for transformer current. So this technical report is an applications guide to the use for distribution transformers, circuit applications for of fuse applying with the requirements of BSEN 604282 Part 1, high voltage fuse current limits, limiting fuse. The documents in informative, not in normative. So this is the applications guide. Guide specifies criteria for condition coordinations of high voltage fused with other circuit component in transformer applications. It also provide guidance for the selection of fuse link with particular reference to their time, current, characteristic, and ratings. So, paano sa Jay? So, next naman po is IEC 60831 Part 1. Shunts for capacitors of the self-healing type of AC system having a rated voltage up to and including 1000 volts. Part 1, General Performance Testing and Rating Safety Requirements, Guide for Installation and Operations. Applications to both capacitor units and capacitor back intended to be used, particularly for power factor correction of AC power system having a rated voltage up to and including 1000 volts and frequencies of 15 hertz to 16 hertz. So this part of EC 60831 also applied to capacitor intended for use in power filter current and test for power filter capacitor are given in Annex A. So the objects of this part is formulate uniform rules regarding per- performances, testing, and rating, and formulate specific safety rules, then provide a guide for installation and operations. So next is IEC 60831 Part 2. Shunt power capacitor of the self-healing type for AC system having a rated voltage up to and including 1000 volts. Part 2, engine test, self-healing test, and destruction test. Applies to capacitor according to AC 60831 Part 1 and give the requirements for the aging test, self-give healing test, and destructions test for this capacitor. This edition constituents are A. Technical revisions. These editions include the following significant technical change with respect to the previous edition. So updating for the normative reference, discharge cycle before aging test carried out at temperature. So next audio. So next is IEC 60947 Part 1, Low Voltage Switch Gear and Control Gear General Rules. The relevant product standard to low voltage switch gear and control gear highly and after referred to as equipment or device and intended to give connection to circuit the rated voltage of which does not exceed 1000 volts AC or 1000 volts DC. So each type of low voltage switchgear and control only two main documents are necessary to determine all requirements of test. So ito po yung two main documents of low voltage switchgear and control gear. So first is This basis standard refers to as part 1 in the specific standard covering the various type of low voltage switchgear and control gear. So number 2 is the relevant equipment standard hereafter refers to as a relevance product standard of or product standard. So next is ECE 60947 low voltage switchgear and control gear circuit breaker applies to circuit breaker, the main contact of switch which are intended to be connected to circuit. The rated voltage of switch does not exceed 1,000 volts AC or 1.5 DC. So the circuit breaker which are the dealt with in the standard can be provided with devices for automatically opening under predetermined conditions other than those of overcurrent and under voltage. As for example, reversal of power reversal of power or current. This standard does not deal with the verification of operation under such predetermined condition. So, pa-next ako, Jay. So, next naman po natin is IEC 60947 Part 3, Low Voltage Switchgear and Control Gear Switches disconnectors which switch disconnectors and fuse combination units. Applies to switch dis, switch disconnectors and fuse combination unit and their dedicated accessories to be used in distribution circuit and motor circuit of switch. The rated voltage does not exceed 1,000 volts AC or 1,5 voltage DC. DC. So dito naman is the particular requirements for switches, disconnectors, and switches, disconnector, and for and fuse combination units for use in photovoltaic PV. So these applications are given in Annex D. In these documents, the word switch also applies to the apparatus refers into friends as commutators intended to modify the connections between several circuit and all interlay substituent pala. Hindi pala substitute. Substituent a part of circuit for another. In general, throughout these documents, switches, disconnectors, and fuse combination units will be referred to as equipment. So, mga equipment, mga equipment. So, next ako. Ay, hindi pa pala. Hindi pa, balik. ECE 60947, hindi, sa kabila. Yan. Part 4, 1. Low voltage switchgear and control gear conductor and motor starter electromechanical contactors and motor starter. It contains the international standard, and its read-line versions show all changes of the technical content compared to the previous editions. So these documents is cover also the assessments produced for electromechanical overload protection used in safety applications such as protecting a motor located in ex- explosive at atmosphere from the outside atmosphere. So, yun, pa-next na ako. So, next is IEC 60947 Part 6.1. Low voltage switchgear and control gear multiple, multiple function equipment transfer switch equipment. Applies to transfer switching equipment TSE to be used in power system for ensuring the continuity of the supply and allowing the energy management of the installations by transferring a load between power supply source. The rated voltage of switch does not exceed 1000 volts AC or 15 volts DC. So it has a properly used for TS. The first is its cover. So ito yung MTSE, Manually Operation Transfer Switchgear. TSE is Remotely Operation Transfer Switching Equipments. At ATS, Automatical Transfer Switchgears. Yan yung sa ano siya, yung its cover. So doon tayo. So it's doesn't not cover naman tayo. TS is configurations that are either not manufacturer tested in, not marked according to this document as a complete transfer switch. So, yun lang yan. So, yun yung dalawa. It's cover tapos it doesn't not cover. So, next is IEC 1000 series electromagnetic compat compatibility AMC standard is the base EMC standard for the European Union, from which many other EMSC standard are generated. So this part of IEC 6 1000 series related to the immunity requirements and test method for electrical and electronic equipments to conducted common mode disturbance in the range DC to 15 kHz. Ay, 150 lang pala, hindi pala 15. 150 kHz. Then the object of this standard is to establish a common and productible basis for testing electrical and electronic equipment with the application of common mode disturbance pala to 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 power supplies and control signal and communication parts. So next ako, Jay. IEC 61140, protection against electric shock, common aspect for installation and equipment. Some clauses in In this standard refer to low voltage and high voltage system installation and equipment. For the purpose of this standard, low voltage is any rated voltage up to the including 1000 volts AC or 15 DC is high voltage is any rated voltage exceeding the 1000 and 1000 volts AC or 15 DC. So it should be noted that for an efficiency design and the selections of protective measures, the types of voltage that may occur and its waveform needs to be considered IEC and AC or DC voltage, sinusoidal transient phase controlled superimposed DC as well as possible mixture of DC form and the installation or the equipment may influence the waveform of the voltage. So next is IEC 61201 used for conventional touch voltage limits application guide. A technical specifications provide guidance on the use for conventional touch voltage limits with references to thresholds given in AC 6041979 Part 5. Considerations is given to different physiological effect of environment condition, contact condition, etc. So one of the responsibilities of a technical committees is whatever applicable to make use for basis safety publication in the preparations of its publications. The requirements are test method or test conditions of these basic safety publications will not apply unless specifically refers to included in the relevant publications. So, next ako, Jay. So, next is IEC TR 61439. Ano siya? Zero. Low voltage switchgear and control gear assemblies guidance to specifying assemblies. Series of standard for low voltage switchgear and control gear assemblies. Assemblies there are system and applications details that are specified by the user to enable to the manufacturer to produce an assembly that meet the needs, the expectations of the user. So this part of IEC 61439, it's a technical report or identification from the user's effective perspective, thus function and characteristics that should be defined when specifying assemblies. So it's provides an explanation of these assemblies characteristic and options within the IEC 6014339 series. So next is IEC 61439 Part 1. So low voltage switchgear and control gear assemblies general rules. The general definitions and service conditions, constructions, requirements, technical characteristic and verification requirements for low voltage switchgear and control gear assemblies. So this there can be so the so dito is there can be a need to comply with the requirements of other standard or legislations in additions to those specified in 16 IEC 161439 series. The so dito is PSCS Power Converter System and Equipment. So SMS MPS switch mode power supplies naman siya. UPS uninterruptible power supplies. So BDM basic drive modes and DCM complete drive modules. So yun lang yung parang specify requirements of other standard of legislation in additional to those specified in IEC 61439. 61439. So, pa-next ako. So, next is IEC 61439 Part 2. Low voltage switch gear and control gear assemblies, power switch gear and control gear assemblies. The provisions of the general rules dealt with in IEC 61439 Part 1 are only applicable to these documents insofar as they are specified cited with when these documents states additions, modifications, or replacement the relevant text in IEC 61439 Part 1 is to be adapted accordingly. So this is standard does not apply to individual devices and self-contained components such as motor starter, fuse switch, electronic equipment. Which will comply with the relevant product and standard. So next is IEC 61439 Part 3 Low voltage switchgear and control gear assemblies distribution board and intended to be operated by ordinary persons DBO. Define the specific requirements for distribution board intended to be operated by ordinary persons DBO. So BDO has a following criteria is it is intended to be operated by ordinary persons. Outgoing circuit contain protective devices, so intended to be operated by ordinary persons. So, pa-next ako, Jay. So, next is IEC 61439 Part 4. Low voltage switchgear and control gear assemblies, particular requirements for assemblies for construction site ACS. Assemblies intended for use on construction site, both indoors and outdoors, i.e. temporary place of work to which the public do not generally have access and where building constructions, installations, repairs, alterations, or demolitions or proper buildings or civil engineering, public work, or excavations or any other similar operation are carried out. So as at this standard is does not apply to individual devices and self-contained components such as a motor starter, fuse switches, electronic equipment will be comply with the relevant product standard. So next is IEC 61439 Part 5. So low voltage switchgear and control gear assemblies for power distribution in public network. Define the specific requirements for public electricity network distribution assemblies. Pendants. Pendants have the following criteria used for the distribution of electrical energy and their in three phases system for which the rated voltage does not exceed to 1000 volts AC. So the object of this standard is to state the definition and to specify the service conditions, constructions, requirements, technical characteristics, and test for pendants network parameters may require tests at higher performance levels. So pendants may also include control and signaling devices associated with distribution of electrical energy. Sa panex ako. So next is IEC 61439 Part 6 Low Voltage Switch Gear and Control Gear Assemblies Bus Bar Tracking the System Busways. BTS intended for use in connections with the generations transmissions, distributions, and conventions of electric energy and for the control of electric energy consumed equipment. So BTS designs for use other special service conditions, for example, in ship, in rail vehicles, and for domestic application operated by unskilled persons, provide, provided the relevant specific requirements are complied with. So this standard applies to all BTS whether they are designed, manufactured, and verified on a one-off basis or fully standards and manufacture and quantity in quantity. So next is IEC 61557 Part 8 Electrical Safety in Low Voltage Distribution System up to 1000 volts AC and 15 volts DC equipment for testing, measuring, or monitoring of protective measures, insulation monitoring devices for IT system. Specify the requirements for installations monitoring devices IMD which permanently monitor the insulation resistance RF to earth of unit AC IT system of AC IT system with galvanically connect Connected DC circuit having nominal voltage up to 1000 volts AC as well as of unit DC. So the various standard of specify the use of installations, monitoring devices, and IT systems such cases the objectives of the equipment to signal drop insulation resistance below a minimum limits. So that's all. So the next report is Mejares, Charles Ivan.
Next is IEC 61567-9, Electrical Safety in Low Voltage Distribution System up to 1000 volts AC and 1500 volts DC. Equipment testing, measuring, or monitoring. Specifies the requirements for the insulation fault location systems or IFLS, which localize insulation faults in any parts of the system in unearthed IT, AC system, and unearthed DC system with galvanically connected DC circuits having nominal voltages up to 1000 volts AC, as well as unearthed IT DC system with voltage up to 1500 volts DC, independent of the measuring principles. Next, IEC 6156. Next na pre. IEC 61567-12. Electrical safety in low voltage distribution system up to 1000 volts AC and 1000 volts DC. Equipment testing, measuring or monitoring of protective measures, performance, measuring and monitoring devices. PMD specifies requirements for power metering and monitoring devices. PMD that measures and monitor the electrical quantities within the electrical distribution system, which and optionally other external signals. These requirements also define the performance in single and three-phase AC or DC system having rated voltage up to 1000 volts AC or up to 1500 DC. These devices are fixed or portable. They are intended to be used indoors and outdoors. Power metering and monitoring devices as give additional safety information which aids the verification of installation and enhances the per- performance of the distribution system. The power metering and monitoring devices for electrical parameters described in this document are used for general, industrial, and commercial applications. Next, IEC 61558-2-6 Safety transformers, reactors, power supply units, and similar products for supply voltages up to 1100 volts. Particular requirements and test for safety isolating transformer and power supply units incorporating isolating transformer. Lang. Deals with the safety isolating transformer for general applications and power supply units incorporating safety isolating transformer for transformer general applications. It is applicable to stationary or portable single or polyphase air-cooled, independent, or associated dry-type transformer. The windings can be encapsulated or non-capsulated. The rated voltage does not exceed 1000 volts AC, and the rated supply frequency and the internal operating frequencies does not exceed 500 Hz. Next, IEC 61643-11, low voltage surge protective device connected to voltage power system requirements and test methods. Applicable to device for surge protection against indirect or direct effects of lightning or other transient overvoltage. These devices are packaged to be connected to 50 or 60 Hz AC power circuits and equipped rated up to 1000 volts RMS. Performance characteristics, standard methods for testing and rating are established. These devices contain at least one nonlinear component and are intended to limit surge voltages and divert surge currents. Next pre. Next pre. Yun. IEC 61643-12. Low voltage surge protective device. Surge protective device connected to low voltage power distribution system. Selection and application principles. Describes the principles for selection, operation, location, and coordination of SPDs to be connected to 50 or 60 Hz AC power circuits and equipment rated up to 1000 volts RMS. This device also contains at least one nonlinear component and intended to limit surge voltages and divert surge current. Next pre. IEC 61643-21. Low voltage protective device. Surge protective devices connected to telecommunications and signaling networks, performance requirements and testing methods. Applicable to device for surge protection of telecommunications and signaling networks against indirect and direct effects of lightning or other transient voltages. The purpose of these SPDs into, is to protect modern electronic equipment connected to telecommunications and signaling network with nominal system voltage up to 1000 volts RMS AC and 1500 volts DC. The SPD configurations described in these standards are composed of one or more voltage limiting components and may include current limiting components. Next pre. IEC 61 643-22 low voltage surge protective device connected to telecommunications and signaling networks, selection and application principles. Describes the principles for selections, operations, location, and coordination of SPDs connected to telecommunications and signaling networks with nominal voltage up to 1000 volts RMS AC and 1500 DC. These standards also addresses SPDs that incorporate protection for signaling lines and power lines that same enclosed, called multi-service SPD. Next pre. Next pre. Next is IEC 6192-1 power capacitors, low voltage power factor correction banks. Applicable to low voltage AC shunt capacitor banks intended to be used for power factor corrections for purposes, possibly equipped with a built-in switchgear and control gear apparatus capable of connecting to or disconnecting from the main parts of the bank within the aim to correct its power factor. Next pre. IEC 6193-6-1 power installation exceeding 1 kVA AC. Part 1 Common Rules. Provides requirements for the design and the erection of electrical power installations in system with nominal voltages exceeding 1 kVA AC and nominal frequency up to and including 60 Hz as to provide safety and proper functioning of the use intended. Next pre. IEC 62271 part dash 1 high voltage switchgear and control gear common specifications applies to AC switchgear and control gear designed for indoor and outdoor installations for operating and at service frequencies up to and including 50 Hz, 60 Hz, and having rated voltages above 1000 volts. This applies to all high voltage switchgear and control gear except as otherwise specified in the relevant IEC standards for particular type of switchgear and control gear. Next pre. IEC 62271-100 high voltage switchgear and control gear alternating current circuit breakers. It is applicable to three-phase AC circuit breakers designed for indoor or outdoor installation for operation at frequencies 50 Hz and or 60 Hz on system having voltage above 1000 voltage. Next. IEC 62271-101 high voltage switchgear and control gear synthetic testing mainly applies to AC circuit breakers. It provides the general rule for testing AC circuit breakers for making and breaking capacities over the range of test duties described in 7.102 to 7.101 of IEC 62271-100 by synthetic methods. It has been proven that synthetic testing is an economical and technical correct way to test high voltage AC circuit breakers according to the requirements of IEC 62271-100 and that it is equivalent to direct testing. The methods and techniques described are those in general use. The purpose of these documents is to establish criteria for synthetic testing and for the proper evaluations of results. Such as criteria will establish the validity of the test method without imposing restraints on innovation of a test circuitry. Next. IEC 62271-102 high voltage switchgear and control gear alternating current disconnectors and earthing switches. It is applied to alternating current disconnectors and earthing switches designed for indoor and outdoor installations for nominal voltages up to above 1000 volts and for service frequencies up to 60 Hz. It is applies to the operating device of these disconnectors and earthing switches and their auxiliary equipment. It is also applicable to switching devices having disconnecting and earthing functionalities apart from other functions, such as high-speed earthing switch, circuit breaker, and switch disconnector. Next. IEC 62271-103. High voltage switchgear and control gear switches for related voltage above 1 kilovolts up to and including to 52 kilovolts. It is applicable to three-phase alternating current switches and switch disconnectors for switching functions, having making and breaking current ratings for indoor and outdoor installations for rated voltages above 1 kilovolts up to and including to 50 kilovolts for rated frequencies from 16 Hz up to and including 60 Hz. It is also applicable for operating devices of, of these switches and to their auxiliary equipment. General principles and provisions of these provisions can also be applicable to single pole switch intended for applications in single phase system and the requirements for dielectric test in making and breaking test being in accordance with the requirements of the specific applications. These documents establish requirements for general and limited special purpose switches used in distribution system. Next. IEC 62271-105. High voltage switchgear and control gear alternating current switch fuse combination for rated voltage above 1 kilovolts up to and including to 50 kilovolts. Applied to 3-pole units for public and industrial distribution system which are functional assemblies for switch composed of switches or switch disconnectors and current limiting fuses designed as to capable of breaking the rated voltage any current up to including the rated short circuit breaking, making at the rated circuit to which at the rated short circuit breaking current applies. It does not apply to combinations of fuses with circuit breakers contains circuit breakers contactors or circuit switchers, nor for combinations for motor circuits, nor to combinations incorporating single capacitor bank switches. The word combinations is used for combination in which the components constitute a functional assembly. Each, each association of a given type of switch in a given type of fuse defines one type of switch fuse combination. Different types of fuses can be combined with one type of switch, which gives several combinations with different characteristics in particular concerning the rated continuous currents. A switch fuse combination is defined by its type of designations and a list of selected fuses defined by the manufacturer, so they called reference list of fuses. Next. IEC 62271-200 high voltage switchgear and control gear alternating current metal enclosed switch and control gear for rated voltage above 1 kilovolts and up to and including 52 kilovolts. It is applicable to prefabricated metal enclosed switchgear and control gear assemblies designed for alternating current, rated voltages above 1 kilovolts and up to and including 50 kilovolts. Service frequencies up to and including to 60 Hz. Indoor and outdoor installations. The, assemb- the assembly can include air insulated and or fuel filled compartments. For components installed in metal enclosed switchgear and control gear, these documents supplements or replace in some cases the requirements as stated by the individual product standards. Next, IEC 62271-200 high voltage switchgear and control gear, high voltage and low voltage prefabricated substation. Specifies the service conditions, rated characteristics, general structural requirements, and test methods of enclosed high voltage prefabricated stations. The, the prefabricated substations are capable connected to AC high voltage network with an operating voltage up to and including 52 kilovolts and power frequencies up to 60 Hz. These prefabricated stations can be situated at ground level or partially or completely below ground level. They are they called it underground prefabricated substations. In general, the two types of prefabricated stations are considered in this document: high voltage switchgear prefabricated stations and high and low voltage transformer prefabricated stations. Step up and step down. A high voltage switchgear prefabricated substations comprises an enclosed containing in general the following electrical components: high voltage switchgear and control gear, auxiliary equipment and circuits, and the high and low voltage transformer prefabricated substations comprises an enclosure containing in general the following electrical components: power transformers, high and low voltage switchgear and control gear, high, high and low voltage interconnections, auxiliary equipment and circuits. Next pre. Next. Yan. IEC 62305-1 Protection against lightning Part 1 General Principles provides general principles to be followed by protection of structures against lightning, including their installations and contents, as well as persons. Note that this system usually fall under special regulations produced by a various specialized authorities. Next. Next. Yan. IEC 62305-2 Protection against lightning Part 2 Risk Management. It is applicable to risk assessment for a structure due to lightning flashes to earth. Its purpose is to provide a procedure for the evaluation for such a risk. Once an upper tolerable limit for the risk has been selected, this procedure allows the selection of appropriate protection measures to be adopted to reduce the risk or to below the tolerable limit. Next. IEC 62305. Next, pre. Yan. IEC 62305-3, Part 3. Physical damage to structures and life hazard. Provides the requirements for protection of a structure against physical damage by means of a lightning protection system or LPS, and for protection against injury to living beings due to step and touch voltages in the vicinity of an LPS. This standard is applicable to a design, installation, inspection and maintenance of an LPS for structures without limitations of their height. Second, establish of measures for protection against injury to living beings due to touch and step down. Next. IEC 62305 Part 4 Electrical and Electronic System within Structures. Provides information for the design, installations, inspection, maintenance, and testing of electrical and electronic system protection or SPM to reduce the risk of permanent failures due to lightning electromagnetic impulse or LEMP within the structures. This standard does not cover protection against electromagnetic interference due to lightning, which may cause functioning of internal system. Also, this standard provides guidelines for cooperations between the designer of the electrical and electronic system and the designer of the protection measures in an attempt to achieve optimum protection effectiveness. Next. IEC 62586-2 Power Quality Measurements in Power Supply System Part 2 Functional Test and certainly requirements specifies functional test and are, are certainly requirements for instrument whose function include measuring, recording, and possibly monitoring power quality parameters in power system supply. Next. IE CTS 62749 Assessment of Power Quality Characteristic of electricity supplied by public networks. Specifies the expected expected characteristic of electricity at the supply terminal of public, low, medium, and high voltage 50 or 60 Hz networks. Note that the boundaries between the various voltage levels can be different for different countries or regions. Low voltage refers to less than or equal to 1 kilovolts. Medium voltage refers to between 1 kilovolts and 35 kilovolts. High voltage refers to between 35 kilovolts and 230 kilovolts. Note that because of existing network structures in some countries or regions, the boundary between medium and high voltage can be different.
Okay, so that's all po, sir and classmates. Thank you for listening.